You're sitting alone in a dim room, a mirror in front of you, a candle to the side. The instructions are simple. Stare at your reflection. Don't look away. Don't blink more than you have to. 10 minutes. That's it. For the first minute, nothing happens. You see your face, your eyes, the small movements of breathing. Familiar, boring even. But somewhere around minute 2, something starts to shift. Your features soften at the edges. Your eyes seem to grow larger, then smaller. The shape of your mouth stops looking like it belongs to you. By minute 7, the face in the mirror is not your face. It is someone else's, someone watching you back. In 2010, an Italian psychologist named Giovanni Caputo ran this exact experiment and published it in the journal Perception. He called it the strange face in the mirror illusion. 50 participants, a dim room, a mirror, 10 minutes of quiet, uninterrupted staring. And what happened to them was almost identical across the board. 66% reported huge deformations of their own face. 28% saw the face of a parent, dead or alive, staring back at them. 48% saw fantastical or monstrous beings. 28% saw the face of an unknown person. And nearly all of them reported a feeling of otherness, so strong that some had to stop the experiment early. They were not on drugs. They were not sleep-deprived. They were not mentally ill. They were ordinary people sitting in a slightly dim room, looking at the one face they had known since birth. And within 10 minutes, that face became a stranger's. Here's why. Your brain does not see the world the way a camera does. A camera records every pixel with equal attention. Your brain does the opposite. It predicts and edits in real time, throwing out what it decides doesn't matter, so it can focus on what might. Scientists call this neural adaptation. If a stimulus holds still, your neurons stop firing about it. Fades. You've felt this before. The clock on your wall you no longer hear. The weight of your clothes you stopped noticing an hour ago. The pressure of the chair beneath you. Until this exact sentence made you feel it again. Your face is subject to the same rule. Under normal conditions, your face is constantly moving. Micro-expressions, blinks, the subtle drift of your eyes as they scan a room. This movement resets your visual system every few hundred milliseconds. Your face stays fresh in your brain. Familiar, yours. But sit still, stare directly, dim the light, and something breaks. The low light forces your peripheral vision to work harder, while starving your central vision of detail. Your eyes fixate. The micro-movements slow down, and the neural adaptation, normally invisible, becomes visible. Features start to dissolve because your brain is no longer bothering to redraw them. The edges of your mouth blur, your nose lengthens, or shortens depending on which parts your brain gives up on first. Your eyes turn into pits, and then something stranger happens. Your brain, starved of good data, does what it always does when information runs out. It fills in the gap. It hallucinates. But it doesn't hallucinate randomly. It reaches for the templates it already has. Faces it knows. Faces from memory. Faces from fear. That's why Caputo's participants saw their dead parents, their siblings, old lovers, monstrous beings out of childhood dreams. The mirror wasn't showing them anything. Their own brain was. And here's where it gets interesting. The stranger in the mirror is not a glitch. It reveals something about how your identity is held together and how thin the seams actually are. Neuroscientists have a concept called the self-face advantage. Your brain processes your own face differently from any other face in the world, faster, more automatically, through a specific network involving the right fusiform gyrus and the medial prefrontal cortex. When you glimpse yourself in a shop window or a phone screen, you recognize yourself in under 200 milliseconds. It feels instant. It feels certain, but that certainty is built. It is your brain running a match against a stored template of you, updated constantly, silently, without your permission. What Caputo's mirror does is starve that matching system of the input it needs. And when the match fails, the sense of self detaches from the image. The face is still there. The recognition is not. Psychologists call this dissociation of identity a form of derealization. It is the same neurological event that shows up in some cases of trauma, in certain psychiatric conditions, and in specific meditative states. What's strange about the mirror experiment is that it produces this state in healthy people, on demand, in 10 minutes, with nothing but a candle and their own reflection. The unshakable certainty that the face you see every morning belongs to you can be taken apart by a dim room and a little patience. The self is not a fixed thing. It is a process, and processes can be interrupted. In 2015, a follow-up study out of the University of Urbino replicated Caputo's findings with a twist. They ran the same experiment with pairs of strangers, staring into each other's faces instead of into a mirror. 10 minutes, dim room, silent contact. The results were even more extreme. Participants reported seeing monstrous features on the other person. Some saw their own face on the stranger. Some saw the face of a relative on someone they had never met before that day. The stranger in the mirror, it turns out, is the stranger in every face, yours included. Now, There's a version of this story that stops at the science and calls it a curiosity of perception. That version isn't wrong. It's just not the whole thing. Cultures have known about this experiment for thousands of years. They just didn't call it an experiment. They called it something else. In folklore across Europe, staring into a candlelit mirror at midnight was said to reveal your future spouse, a demon, or the face of the dead. In some Slavic traditions, mirrors were covered when someone died, so the spirit would not become trapped inside. Whispered in the dark by kids who don't know why it works is a folk descendant of the same neurological trick. Say the name, stare into the glass, wait for the face to change. It always changes. It has always changed. Because human perception has always worked this way. For most of history, we did not have a scientific explanation for what happened in that mirror. So we did what humans always do when faced with something unexplained and unsettling. We built stories around it. We called it a ghost, a spirit, a prophecy, a visitation. And here's the part almost nobody says out loud. The stories may have been metaphors, but the experience was real. Whatever your ancestors saw in the polished bronze of a Roman mirror or the still surface of a medieval well, they were seeing the same thing Caputo's participants saw in 2010. Their brains were doing the same thing your brain is doing right now in this room. As you hear this sentence, the mirror has not changed. The face has not changed. Only the vocabulary has. So what does this leave you with? Not a ghost story. Not exactly. Something quieter and more unsettling than that. The you that you assume is stable is not. The face you assume is yours is a rendering. The identity you carry through the day is being drawn and redrawn thousands of times per second by a brain that is very good at hiding the seams. Most days, it never lets you see the machinery. Most days, you never have a reason to look for more than a second. But the machinery is there. It has always been there. And under the right conditions, it slips. A dim room, a quiet mind, 10 minutes. That is all it takes for the you in the mirror to become someone you don't recognize. That is all it takes for your brain to reach into memory and pull out a face that isn't there. That is all it takes for the boundary between self and other, so obvious in daylight, to soften and dissolve. You can try it tonight. You almost certainly will now that you know. Find a room. Light a single candle. Sit close to a mirror. Set a timer. Look at yourself the way a stranger would look at you. And somewhere around minute 7, you will meet them. Whoever they are, whoever you are, the face in the glass will drift, and then hold, and then look back at you with an expression you did not put there. Most of us live our entire lives without ever seeing this. We move too fast. We look too briefly. We never sit still long enough for the illusion to break. And so we walk around believing there is a solid person behind our eyes, a fixed self, a familiar face, a permanent name. Then one night, in a quiet room, you sit down in front of a mirror, and for 10 minutes, you find out how thin the story really is. If you made it this far, do me a favor, subscribe, like this video, share it with someone who would sit in that dim room with you, and compare notes afterward. It helps more than you know, and it keeps this channel alive, so we can keep going to the strange corners of what it means to be a human being, because the mirror is only the beginning.